just going back to what your example with speaking in the room and you're having the vectors and the people at the front would hear the same information as the people at the back, but there would be an algorithmic drop-off with that. Mm-hmm. I have a very limited understanding of this, Don, but I was under the impression that with Scalar it was more a case of that there wasn't that kind of loss, that the information was omnipresent, more like a quantum aspect of
exactly. That's exactly right. So with scalar transmissions, since we're using a collapsed electromagnetic field, we're not using a vector field. It's more like a standing wave. Like, for example, if you have let's say you have the game where we used to take two tin cans and we put a string between them, and one person would talk into the can, and this wave would follow the string. Well, the wave is the vector, right? But the information is the scalar part of it. So when we collapse the electromagnetic spectrum, we set up this two listening points. We've got two listening points, or one transmission point and one listening point. But the information is instantaneous, and it's a little bit complicated or difficult to imagine that this is a wholeness. This is a one field effect. So there is no point A and point B in essence, because we've collapsed that in the scalar electromagnetic field, and point A and point B are actually in the same space-time, which is outside of 3 dimensions that we know. But the scalar field is instantly transmitted from point A to point B. We collapse the field. And those electromagnetic fields that we collapse and call a scalar field are absolutely unstoppable. There is no way to block these scalar fields with normal electromagnetic means. For example, my friend Dr. Bob Beck had created a small scalar transmitter that he could fit in his shirt pocket, and they took him into a military installation. I think it was 10 or 12 stories underground, into a safe room where they had created this electromagnetic shield, so when they needed to have a private conversation, top secret, they could go down into this underground bunker, basically, and for sure nobody could get any signals in or get any signals out, and they could have a 100% private conversation. Well, they took him down there. He said, look, I can get a signal out of here. And they said, no, you can't. We already know it's impossible. And we've done all the mathematics and we've tried everything in the world. And he said, okay. And he took his little scalar transmitter out and started beeping in it some Morse code. And the people up on top got the signal. And within just a few minutes, the red emergency phone rang on the desk, and they picked it up, and they were totally in shock that he could get a signal out of this safe room. So these scalar waves they behave totally differently than electromagnetic waves. And since it's not taught in our public education anymore, then most people think it's either impossible or improbable that this works. But it works, and we've been working with it for a long time.
How long has scalar been in our awareness? What's the history of it, please?
Well, it really started with Nikola Tesla. This is our hero of the time. And even though he didn't call it scalar electromagnetic waves, he would call it longitudinal standing waves. So he would collapse the electromagnetic spectrum and create what's called a longitudinal standing wave, which is basically, once you get the resonant frequency set, this wave just sits there in space. It's sort of like if you put a vibration into Jell-O, and it's vibrating when it's and you put the Jell-O in the refrigerator. Once the Jell-O cools down, and you take it out of the refrigerator, that waveform stays in the Jell-O, and that's basically what a longitudinal scalar wave is, or longitudinal standing wave is. You set up a resonant frequency between the 2 points, and it creates a connection between point A and point B that is lossless. There's no, again, if it was a vector, point A would be here and point B the energy would start falling off until it got to point B. But when you set up this longitudinal standing wave, it creates a no-loss field. And so with that, Nikola Tesla was able to send electricity through the air as we would think it. It's actually through a scalar field. But to make it simple, he could send electricity without wires from point A to point B and light up a light bulb. And this is, most people would say that's impossible. But I actually have one of those devices, and I can do that. I can send the electricity from point A to point B and light up at the other end.